Rain slammed the concrete helipad like it was trying to scrub away the day's mistakes. Inside the compound's command corridor, red strobe lights pulsed in sync with the shriek of the main alarm. Steel doors locked down in sequence. Radios barked overlapping orders. Footsteps pounded in every direction. But she didn't run. She was on her knees with a bucket and cloth, scrubbing grime off the floor beneath a wall-mounted console. And for one surreal second, amid the chaos, all she noticed was the faint chemical tang of lemon cleaner clinging to her gloves. Then someone screamed, "Where the hell is Captain Morley?" No one answered. She rose slowly, wet rag still in hand. Eyes lifted to the console above her, where the air defense interface had already started cycling live alerts. The badge on her chest said, "Custodial Tech." No one had questioned it when she signed on. No one looked twice when she mopped at 0400, when she lingered near the control panels, when she asked which corridor housed the radar diagnostics feed. Most called her Mouse. Some didn't call her anything at all. The janitor with the quiet shoes and dark ponytail. The one who never complained about double shifts. The one who patched the CO's torn flight glove without being asked. Her name was Lee Calder. Age 31. Slender, pale, with quick eyes and a voice she rarely used. The kind of woman everyone forgot until they didn't. And right now, Lee Calder was the only person standing between the compound and a threat screaming in from the north. They trained here for high-stress readiness. Simulated launches, rapid evacuations, drone jamming drills. But this was not a drill. Through the plexiglass hallway window, Lee glimpsed one of the techs running toward the lower hangar, yelling something into his comms. Behind him, the sky pulsed orange, missile flare. From the console above her, the NOR, a delinked terminal, screamed a third-tier threat alert. Inbound unknown payload, Eta 243. No command. No air defense chief. No authorization key turned. Just her. She slid off the gloves. Her hands trembled for less than a second. Then they didn't. 4 keystrokes opened the secondary defense protocol. 6 more pulled up the last known intercept. Window. Her voice was low but exact when she triggered the override. Calder, custodial access. Emergency protocol code X517 Romeo. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the terminal flickered, recognized the code. Access granted. It wasn't supposed to. Behind her, 2 privates burst into the corridor, both wide-eyed. "Ma'am, this area is restricted." Lee didn't turn. "There's no one else on this floor," she said. "Get to the manual radar toggles. Give me eyes northeast, now." One hesitated. The other moved. Somewhere overhead, metal cracked. The base shuddered slightly. "You have clearance for this?" The first private asked, confused. "No," Lee said, "but I have the skill." "And you have a choice." The private blinked, then nodded. They ran. 10 minutes earlier, she'd been on her knees, wiping up a spill near the drone telemetry racks. Heard the humming pitch of a power-up sequence that shouldn't have triggered. Not during lockdown, her instincts had said. 2 things. 1, something was coming. 2, she would need to act fast. So she stayed close to the nerve center. Pretended to polish chrome. Listened. Now her fingers danced across the outdated interface, rerouting the defensive tower's firmware. She could do it by sound and feel. She had, in another life, the chair she sat in had once belonged to her mother. Major Isla Calder, former air defense architect, died in an embassy collapse overseas. Her name still floated in the secure archives of certain black-tier contractor networks. And Lee, who was supposed to follow her, had vanished instead, not out of cowardice, out of principle. She refused to play hero for people who only remembered names after the metal. So she cleaned, watched, waited. The inbound threat split. 2 bogies now. 1 high altitude, 1 skimming terrain. Decoys? Or tandem strike? No one left to decide. So she made the call. Tower 5, spin up. Prioritize sweep pattern Echo 9. Tower 5 is dark, one of the privates called from the side station. Power loop error. Lee was already at the failsafe. Run the cross-grid through Tower 3. Triplicate the sensor path. He stared at her. Do it. He did. 3 seconds later, radar caught the lower flyer weaving through ridge cover. They know our blind spots, Lee said. They've seen the drills. The view. Private asked, "Who are you?" She didn't answer. The first projectile hit the outer wall of the training zone. Explosive impact, but localized. It wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to scare and scatter, which meant the real payload was the second wave. Contact scramble on frequency Tango Zulu, Lee ordered. A lieutenant appeared from the side stairwell, bleeding at the hairline. What the hell? Get on comms. Lee snapped. Relay to command. Local grid compromised. Take over East Defense or we go dark. Who gave that order? She turned to him. I did. Now move. Something in her eyes stopped him arguing. He moved. The second inbound vanished from radar. Not good. Stealth. She recalibrated the North Tower array manually. Fingers blur fast. A tech trainee tried to question her. She ignored him. 30 seconds. Later, a flicker on the screen. There you are. She selected manual intercept. Tracked. Waited. Held breath. Locked. Intercept window in 5.4.3. Silence, then birds away. From the watchtower, a twin pair of defensive missiles launched in tight formation. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, Lee stood perfectly still, watching the screen. Hit confirmed. Target neutralized. The private exhaled like he'd been holding it forever. The lieutenant stumbled to a wall, stunned. Lee picked up her gloves again. Someone should finish cleaning the rest of the hall, she said. Then the third alert flashed. It wasn't over. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The hallway smelled of ozone and burnt circuit boards. Lee called her, paused at the threshold of the command alcove, her fingers still damp from the bucket. The console she'd commandeered flickered softly in the dim emergency lighting. She tested. One fingernail on the edge of a relay switch. It held fast. Report status to me now, she ordered, voice low but unyielding. Private Diaz's shoulders trembled beneath his jacket. He swallowed and read the screen. Missile impact confirmed north perimeter. Secondary sweep detects residual shrapnel cloud. Aircrew casualties unknown. Lee's heart tightened. Each word was a pulse in the base's failing lifeline. And the radome? Silence. She didn't need to see the data to know. The dome's feed had gone dark seconds before the initial strike. No direct hit, only an EMP blast to knock out their sensors. A shudder rattled the console. Somewhere in the distance, a generator rebooted with a grinding groan. Backup power kicking in, Diaz reported. But the feed's unstable. We'll stabilize it, Lee said, climbing into the chair. Bring up the auxiliary relay. Bypass sequence. Gamma 8, he hesitated. He still hadn't fully processed that the janitor was giving orders. Lee, he ventured. If you're not Calder, she corrected. Call me Calder, her gaze cut sharp. And if that dome doesn't come online in 10 seconds, they'll waste another missile on this floor. He exhaled, fingers flying. From the control room's outer window, the storm had intensified. Sheets of rain blurred the edge of the compound. Lightning arced across the sky, illuminating the skeletal frames of aircraft hangars. Lee let her eyes track the arc of one flash, memorizing the silhouettes of their defenses. Not enough placement, not enough coverage. No one else had noticed. She had. Memories flickered behind her eyelids. The hush of her mother's workshop as she soldered guidance chips. The clang of her father's metal shop as he tuned missiles for precision testing. Those half-heard lectures about vector trajectories and EMP countermeasures. delivered as bedtime stories. They'd taken them for granted, but she had learned. She opened her eyes. Status? Relay engaged. Signal strength at 65%. Diaz's voice quavered. I need 90% at minimum. Reroute from power block 3. He tapped a few keys. The hum in the walls shifted. Signal rising ... 80-2 ... 91%. Good. Now rerun the calibration on the North Radome. Engage recon sweep on frequency Zulu 7. Calibration running ... Sweep engaged. The screen bloomed with green tracers. The lower resolution view of the Northern Valley reappeared. There. Look. A solitary blip skirted the ridgeline. Low radar cross-section, likely drone-based, Lee mused. They've moved to sensor cloaking tech. We trained for this. We practiced. Diaz shook his head, awe and fear mingling in his eyes. Drop us, you've ever felt like no one heard you, Lee said, more to herself than the private. Now. Listen, she continued, voice crisp. They'll attempt targeting the central generator. If that goes down, we're blind completely. She rotated in the chair to face the auxiliary console. The private's reaction was immediate. He snapped. To move. Set turret prioritization to defensive grid 1-2. Pair with acoustic triangulation. On it. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Lieutenant Harris appeared, rain-drenched and bleeding through his collar. His face was lit by the glow of his handheld tablet. They just knocked out the East Command node. He swallowed, voice raw. You're not supposed to be here. I know what I'm doing, she said. He studied her. You weren't cleared for any of this. I was cleared when they trained me, she replied, voice calm. Now get back to the tower. Engage the secondary batteries. He hesitated, then turned. Toward the stairwell. Lieutenant? He paused. Yes, ma'am? She offered a small nod. Text your wife when you can. Tell her I said you'll be late. He blinked, ... yes ... Calder. He left, the console chimed. 3 new tracks appeared on the lower screen. Fast-moving bogies at medium altitude. 1 creeping silently at treetop level. They're converging, Diaz warned. Lee tapped commands. I want the medium altitude engaged first. Our anti-air artillery has a window of 30 seconds before they cross into frag range. Turrets primed. Awaiting your go, she leaned forward. Stand by to fire on my mark. Silence. A tremor ran through the floor. ... Mark. A volley of shells erupted from the lowered batteries, tracer rounds arching toward the sky. Bright streaks against the storm. Direct hits. Both bogies neutralized. Lee exhaled. Now the low flyer. But it was gone. Vanished from the map. That one slipped the net, Diaz said. She frowned. Or we let it. They want it here. He looked at her in disbelief. Why? Because they're not after the base. They're after me. Hours earlier, she had slipped into the intelligence vault to glance at the unredacted mission logs. Classified ops that referenced the code name Merlin, a joint initiative to deploy EMP-tolerant drones for covert strikes. She'd seen the designs, knew the build, and recognized the signatures we just faced. It wasn't random. It was a test. A hunt. Alarms changed tone. High-pitched klaxon now. Urgent. Command override in progress, Diaz reported. Someone's trying to lock us out. Lee's eyes narrowed. Initiate counter-overwrite. Protocol Tango Delta 3. He complied. The screen flashed. Access revoked. Override. Failed, she whispered. They've got higher-level clearance. A dozen footsteps thundered down the hall, voices shouting. Security team inbound. Lee rose. Gloves in hand, she advanced toward the door. Let them in. Diaz gaped. She pressed her palm to the door's biometric lock. It chimed. She twisted the handle. Inside the corridor, 8 armed guards halted at the sight of her. Captain Ellis. Flank-shouldered and rifle-trained, stepped forward. Calder, stand down. You're in breach of direct orders. She met his gaze. I'm the only one standing. Between this place and oblivion. He hesitated. Lightning split the sky behind him. He lowered his rifle. She entered the command alcove. The auxiliary console chimed again. The low flyer had returned to radar traced at the center of the base's main power grid. If that drone hits the grid transformer, we lose everything, Diaz said. Then we stop it, Lee said. Call the 20mm rotary cannons. Calibrate lead target on velocity vector 3.2. Vectors input. Cannons online. Now. She watched the display. The crosshair aligned. A static beep. Then. Lethal round inbound. The monitor flickered as the night ignited in a sudden flash of muzzle fire. Impact confirmed, Diaz said. Shut it down, she ordered. Switch to manual fire. We need a follow-up volley. He blinked. Manual fire? But the fire control is locked. She straightened. Watch. She crossed back to the main console. 4 keystrokes. Later, the manual bypass appeared. There, Diaz swallowed. Bypassed, then fire. Another roar. The radar jammer lit up as the drone's black silhouette tumbled and exploded. Silence followed, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Lee touched the printout. Waiting in the console's tray, the mission report for Merlin. Someone had ordered it destroyed. After she read it, she scanned the lines, names, dates, coordinates, and her own Cody name, Operator. Shadow. Her fingers trembled. Not with fear. With something else. Purpose. She looked at the map one more time. No more targets remained. The only threat left was inside. She exhaled and turned. Pack up everything here, she told Diaz. Reroute all logs to secure storage. We disappear once command arrives. The private stared. But where do we go? Lee met his eyes to the roof. The evac helicopter is still there, if they didn't knock it out. The rain hammered at the windows with renewed fury. She wiped her glove on her trousers and walked toward the rear hatch, every step echoing like a drumbeat. Cold open. 38 words. The storm's howl merged with the distant blast of a rocket. Lightning illuminated her silhouette atop Tower 7, standing calm as the tempest. Around her, the base lay in ruins, yet her eyes burned with resolve. Tonight, she would reclaim the skies. Backstory thread. The rest of her team thought Lee's quiet diligence was harmless. They never saw the way she studied the flight manuals tucked behind mops, or how she'd linger at the technical briefings, lips parted in silent curiosity. Only she knew her lineage. A sniper father whose aim was legend, a mother whose medics touch saved thousands. Code names and clearance levels were childhood bedtime tales. Inciting incident. At dawn, when the compound was bathed in pale light, Lee discovered the command node's schematic buried beneath security logs. M-Pulse signatures matched the product drones her mother's unit once tested. Someone was targeting this base, and she was their unwitting bait. Crisis and reveal. The second wave TV scan showed 3 incoming vectors. Civilian trainees panicked. Command was offline. Only Lee remained. Resolution and reflection. She repurposed the infirmary's defibrillator to jumpstart the central grid, feeling the shock ripple through her bones. As power returned, she realized cleaning floors was her camouflage, but this fight was hers by blood. End of Part 2 cliffhanger. The roof hatch shuddered under the weight of boots. Lee glanced upward through the rain-blackened glass. And there, they were Black Ops soldiers she'd never seen, weapons trained on her. Rain pinged off the rooftop like 1,000 whispered warnings. Lee Calder didn't flinch. Her back was to the helipad, her gaze steady on the squad of black-clad soldiers fanned across the landing deck. They weren't base personnel. Their gear was matte, custom-fitted, no insignia. Their rifles looked standard until you looked at the optics. Tier 1 contractors. Ghost Unit. And every one of them had their weapon aimed at her. She raised both hands. Identify, said the lead soldier. Voice filtered through a tactical mic. No sudden movements. I'm Lee Calder, she said clearly. Civilian custodian. Temporary clearance level, Echo 7. They didn't lower their guns. Another soldier tapped his helmet, receiving an uplink. He frowned. Echo 7 doesn't have missile. Intercept permissions, or air defense terminal overrides. Lee didn't respond. Behind her, the rotors of the evac chopper began to slow. The pilot, seeing weapons drawn, wisely stayed in the cockpit. Where's your commanding officer? The lead demanded. Gone, she said. I intercepted the last inbound. Target was Merlin-class drone. I acted before your contractors could override my system. A pause. How do you know about Merlin? Lee took one step forward. The rifles. Didn't fire. She extended a single data chip in her right hand. I pulled telemetry off the drone before it was neutralized. Classified patterns. I know what they were testing. And I know someone sent them here because they thought this base was empty. The soldier nearest her moved forward. Took the chip, then nodded slowly. She's right. The roof cleared quickly. After that. Not because they trusted her. Because they had no time to waste. Within 3 minutes, Lee had briefed the lead agent, Commander Voss, inside the evac chopper's side bay. He leaned against the bulkhead, expression unreadable. You're telling me the attack was a red-on-red blacklist? I'm telling you whoever sent that drone didn't think anyone would know how to stop it, Lee said. They counted on chaos, casualties, and they got neither. That's a problem for them, and you're just a janitor? I'm whatever the situation needs me to be. Diaz joined her moments later, face pale, eyes wide. They're saying you stopped 3 drones. I didn't stop them. She said. I interrupted a pattern. A pattern? Lee stared out the side of the chopper toward the ruined perimeter wall. It wasn't just here. There's been 3 Merlin sightings in 2 weeks, all inside friendly territory. 1 in Alaska. 1 off the coast of Scotland. Now this? Tests? Probes, she corrected. Not from an enemy. From someone trying to see if we're paying attention. Diaz blinked. Are we? Lee didn't answer. They didn't let her off the roof. Instead, the base director, recently awakened and very displeased, demanded she be brought to the lower debrief cell. Not in cuffs, not technically under arrest, but every movement was tracked. Who trained you? The interrogator asked. His voice was smooth. Practice. Lee leaned back in the chair. My parents. Name? She shrugged. You already. No. You had access you shouldn't have. Or maybe someone put me here because they knew this would happen. A pause. You're suggesting you were a plant. I'm suggesting, she said slowly, that you ask yourself how a custodian knew how to override a locked air defense grid, while the people you do pay to defend this base were running from a single drone. They let her go. Not because they wanted to, but because the surveillance footage confirmed her actions. Because the missile intercept logs bore her clearance ID. Because the chaos didn't start until after she intervened. They didn't thank her. They just ... Released her. Back into the halls, she mopped. Back into the gray coveralls. Back into the silence. But the silence was different now. A week passed. Then 2, base activity resumed. The hole in the outer wall was patched. The tower Lee had launched. The final intercept from was sealed for repairs. The buzz was about a training error, a friendly drone misfire. No one spoke the word Merlin again, but one afternoon, as Lee was sanitizing the medbay consoles, a package appeared in her locker. No sender, no markings. Inside was a folded paper. It read, "We saw what you did. There's a place for people like you. Report to Hangar 12, midnight." No signature. Just a crest and faint red ink. Her mother's old unit. Midnight found her pacing the edge of the flight deck, Hangar 12 had been abandoned for years, supposedly scheduled for demolition. At WASN single quotes T. Inside, the lights flicked on automatically, and behind the far partition stood a matte gray aircraft unlike any she'd ever seen. It looked part fighter, part drone. No visible cockpit. A voice echoed through the space. "You've been seen, Lee Calder. You've been measured, and we need you." She turned. A woman in dark fatigue stepped forward. Her hair was short, streaked with gray. Her eyes were hard. Lee knew her immediately. Colonel Marin Vell, former strategist for Ghost Hawk, presumed retired. "They told me you quit," Lee said. "I did," Vell replied. "Until the world started recycling old threats. Now we're building something new." Lee glanced toward the aircraft. "That yours?" "Now it's yours," Vell said. The weeks that followed were a blur, not of drills, or lectures, or pep talks, but of integration. She wasn't trained in the traditional sense. She was paired with it. The Ghostbird, the prototype aircraft that required a human operator for moral logic execution. Not AI, not autonomous, but linked. Lee was tested. Psychologically, intellectually, biometrically. They didn't ask her to pass. They asked her to adapt. And she did. "Droppa, if you've ever known a place wasn't built for you until you built it yourself," she whispered one night as she sat inside the neural feedback cradle. Her first mission came 2 months later. A reconnaissance team had gone dark outside Prague. Suspected cyberstrike from rogue actors. The Ghostbird launched under storm cover. Lee rode inside. Not as a passenger, but as its guide. The link was silent, smooth, like flying a thought. When enemy fire erupted from an unmarked installation, Lee moved. The Ghostbird rolled left, avoided the barrage, launched a decoy burst. 3 missiles flew. 2 struck air. The third was intercepted midder. No one knew her name when she landed, but the data she brought back proved the origin of the cyberstrike. A faction within the same agency that had once trained her mother. It didn't get easier. It got clearer. Lee was no longer a ghost in the hallways. She was a shadow on the radar. A name whispered in emergency channels. Cody name. Janitor. It wasn't mockery. It was legacy. Clean up the mess. Scrub the lies. Polish the truth until it glints like armor. Then the message came. Target reacquired. Merlin is airborne, heading west. Ada, 6 hours. This time, the mission was different. This time, she was the one in pursuit. The launch was silent. The base didn't even know she was leaving. Only Vell and Diaz stood by the runway. He handed her the same gloves she'd worn when scrubbing the command floor. "Wear these," he said, "in case you forget who you are." She smiled faintly, then stepped into the Ghostbird. The sky above Greenland was sapphire black. Lee tracked the Merlin unit by its wake signature. It shimmered faintly through the sensors. She pursued in silence. Then, as the wind howled across the fuselage, she whispered, "Merlin, I see you." The screen flared red. Target lock acquired. She armed the intercept module, then paused. Because another signal had appeared. Secondary unit. Unknown. And it was transmitting her CODENAME. Janitor. End. Part 3 cliffhanger. Lee froze. The screen showed the second aircraft falling in beside her, mirroring her movements perfectly. No ID, no call sign, no transponder. Just 3 letters scrawled in the corner. Mom. Then the speaker crackled. "Sweetheart, if you can hear this, we have work to do." The sky burned in silence. A second aircraft, ghost gray, like hers, held formation just 30 meters off her wing. No comms badge, no military beacon. But on her HUD, 3 block letters shimmered in the top corner. Colon Mom. Her throat tightened. She hadn't seen that calsign in over a decade. Official records said Isla Calder died in a collapse during a classified operation. There was no body, no retrieval. Just a folded flag and a rehearsed speech. Now the voice in her headset slightly aged but still sharp crackled through the silence. "Sweetheart, if you can hear this. We have work to do." Lee didn't blink, didn't breathe. She reached up, toggled the secure sideband. "This is Janitor," she said, voice low. "Confirm identity." The other aircraft peeled left, then arced smoothly back to match her trajectory, an old maneuver from Isla's playbook. The one she called slingshot loyalty. "I had to disappear," the voice said. "Merlin wasn't just a drone, it was a project. A promise, and I couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands. But it did." Lee swallowed hard. "Where have you been?" "Waiting, watching. And now we don't have time for tears." The Ghostbird's alert system pinged. Merlin had gained altitude. It was angling north by northeast. That made no sense. There was nothing in that corridor but open ice and scattered radar dead zones, unless it was leading them. "Don't engage until we confirm destination," Isla said. Lee steadied her grip. "Roger, but if it disappears again, we won't get another chance." "You will. This time you've got me." They flew in silence for 27 minutes. Below them, 1,000 miles of blue ice fractured under ancient wind. Above them, stars blinked through high-altitude haze. Then Merlin dove, straight down. "What the hell?" Lee muttered. Isla was already moving. "Follow it, but stay high." "It's baiting you." Lee activated sensor tilt. The Ghostbird tilted. With perfect response. Below, embedded in a cracked ice shelf, was a hidden structure just wide enough to house a strike drone. A hangar carved into the glacier, the kind of place no one would notice unless they knew exactly where to look. "Sub-Zero docking bay," Isla said. "It's an old Ghost Hawk asset. They buried it during downsizing. Guess someone kept the key." "Why bring Merlin here?" Lee asked. "To protect it," Isla replied. "Or upgrade it." Inside the glacial ridge, heat signatures lit the scope. "Humans, double quotes, 10 hostiles. Mixed gear, contractor grade, no national markings," Lee reported. "Private army," Isla sighed. "Probably run by the ones who stole our designs." Lee banked left. "You thinking what I'm thinking? That it's time to mop up?" Lee smiled. "You always hated leaving dirty footprints." They angled for descent. The hangar opened, as if expecting them. Heavy hydraulic gates folded inward. Artificial lights flickered across the entry. But the welcome was silent. Lee muttered into Cums. "Drop a if you've ever walked into a room knowing you'd be underestimated." No reply, but that's what this was, a trap. A presentation. The kind made for ghosts. Inside, the walls were carved from reinforced steel buried under meters of ice. The central platform rotated slowly on. It sat the newest version of Merlin. Sleeker, deadlier. AI node. Glowing red dot, and in front of it stood a man she knew only by his file. Photo. Director Keen, former Ghost Hawk strategist. Disavowed. Presumed dead. Until now. Keen raised a hand. Lee called her, at last. Lee didn't reply. "You've done well. I always suspected the janitor wasn't just cleaning floors." Ila's voice entered the Cums. "Keen, you look old." He stiffened. "Isla, you should have stayed." "Buried. I tried. But your messes keep finding my daughter." Keen stepped back. "This isn't about grudges. It's about evolution. The world needs weapons that think faster than politics. Merlin isn't just code, it's survival." Lee lowered her visor. "Then you'll survive without it." She fired first. 2 microbursts of N disruptor rounds, angled high. They struck the hangar's upper relay hub, killing interior sensors and frying Cums. Keen shouted. Guards fanned out. Isla's craft landed hard behind Lee. A side door opened, and she stepped out, body armored, pulse rifle ready. Mother and daughter stood side by side. Then they moved. Lee zigzagged toward the nearest pillar, dodging semi-auto fire. She pulled a jammer from her belt and slapped it to the nearest console. Screens blinked. Merlin powered down. Isla moved in a perfect arc, precision firing through the crate stacks. Each shot neutralized a hostile. Left flank. Lee called. Got it, Isla answered. They were in sync. Within 5 minutes, 6 hostiles were down. 2 surrendered. 1 ran only to be caught by the Ghostbird's AI restraint protocol. The last aimed at Isla. Lee saw the muzzle flash before her mother did. She dove. The round clipped her shoulder. Pain flared. She didn't stop moving. She tackled the last hostile and disarmed him with a fluid twist. The rifle skittered away. He reached for a sidearm only to stop as a shadow fell over him. Isla. She raised her weapon and dropped him with 1 shot. After the silence, Lee lay back against the crate. Isla knelt beside her. Let me see, Lee hissed as the armor peeled back. Clean hit, through and through. Still hurts, Lee grinned. Not as much as floor wax in an open wound. Keen wasn't dead. But he was bleeding. From the leg, the arm, and somewhere deeper. You don't get it, he spat. Merlin wasn't made to destroy. It was made to replace. You're obsolete. You both are. Isla looked down at him. Then why did you try to kill us? His silence answered. They retrieved Merlin's AI core and shut the system permanently. Glacier Base was wired for demolition. A timer set for remote detonation once they reached altitude. Lee leaned back in her cockpit, eyes closed, as the Ghostbird climbed through the cloud cover. Isla flew beside her. Back at the base, no one said a word when Lee returned. They'd seen the encrypted burst on the satellite net. They'd seen Merlin's signal vanish. They knew. Still, she returned to the janitor locker room. Still, she pulled on her gray gloves. Still, she scrubbed the command console, because some rituals meant something. Isla entered quietly. You're going back undercover? Lee nodded. For now. There's a mission in Peru. Rogue satellite reprogramming. I could use a wingman. Lee smiled. Let's clean it up. End of Part 4 cliffhanger. As they walked toward the flight deck, the overhead lights flickered. Then the base's emergency system activated. Alert. Unidentified signal breach. Lee stopped mid-step. The screen displayed a new icon. Operator_2. Janitors. Isla's face went pale. Lee. There's something I never told you. The emergency lights bathed the hallway in red. Alert. Operator_2. Janitors. Lee Calder stared at the flickering screen, her body frozen mid-step. Her pulse slowed, not sped up. That was her father's trick. Go still, go cold. Don't panic, never panic. But she turned slowly to look at Isla. Her mother's face was white with something rarer than fear. Guilt. You said I didn't have siblings. You didn't, Isla said, barely above a whisper. But you do now. The screen shifted. A live satellite feed. A camera deep in the Andes, shaking from altitude wind. Framed in the corner of the outpost helipad stood a woman in matte gray. Combat gear. She had Lee's posture, Lee's build, Lee's stance when she squared for a shot. But she wasn't Lee. She was her reflection off by just enough to unnerve. Her name is Mara, Isla said. Born of the same genome project. Different time. Different purpose. Lee whispered. You cloned me? No, Isla said. But someone did. They didn't speak until they reached the lower flight hangar. The corridor buzzed with the low hum of static energy, the kind that came with classified pre-flight loadouts. Vel was waiting near the Ghostbird. I assume you've seen the alert, she said. Isla nodded. Where's the breach vector? Southwest Peru. Capac Base Station. Supposed to be a weather station, but there's been AI energy signatures on and off for a month. Lee asked, and this sister of mine? Vel hesitated. If it's who I think it is, she's not your sister. She's your backup. Meaning, she's what they built in case you failed. Isla said nothing until they were in the air. Then, finally, she spoke. They couldn't recreate you. Not fully. But during the Merlin trials, someone filed a project called Phoenix. Ghost Hawk classified it. But the concept was to extract the same cognitive layers, the intuition, the resistance to shock stress, and isolate it. Clone my mind, Lee said flatly. Not exactly. Mimic it. That's why she walks like you, thinks like you. But she isn't you. Lee stared at the cloud line. She has her own will? Yes, and she's working with someone. The Phoenix Protocol failed in simulations, which means what we're seeing now was accelerated and dirty. They flew for 6 hours during that time. Lee reviewed all available footage from the outpost. Mara hadn't made contact, hadn't spoken, but her presence had caused a full shutdown of every AI module within 200 kilometers. No hacks, no violence, just proximity. She's a suppression unit, Lee murmured, not a disruptor. She disables tech, Isla confirmed. The hard way. Lee looked at her mother. So why now? Isla's lips pressed together. Maybe she's not here for us. Maybe she's here for the ghost bird. They landed on a cliffside pad at Capac. Thin air made every breath tight. The wind was jagged. Oxygen levels low. Lee climbed down first. Isla followed. Both wore modified Ghost Hawk armor. The base had been abandoned, but recently, coffee still steamed on a desk inside the tower. Lights flickered. And the only door not locked led downward, into the mine, Lee said. Of course. They descended together. 300 meters into the earth. They heard it, the echo of metal boots, then the voice. You came. Lee stepped out of the shaft corridor. Mara stood ahead. No weapon, no backup. Just her. Her face was calm. Like Lee's, her eyes. Not quite. They lacked uncertainty. Who are you? Lee asked. I'm what they wanted you to be. And? What's that? Obedient. Isla stepped forward. Mara, I didn't approve this. I shut down Phoenix. You shut down your version, Mara replied. But the code didn't die. It evolved. I was trained in silence. And I waited. For what? Lee asked. For you to show me what comes next. It should have been a fight. But we was send single quotes. Mara sat cross-legged on the cold stone floor. I came here because I needed to see it. See what you were. What? You are. Lee crouched across from her. And what did you see? A choice that I wasn't given. Silence. Then Lee asked, what do you want? To fly? Lee blinked. Like you, Mara said. To earn it, not be programmed for it. Isla knelt beside her daughter. We can't let her near the ghost bird. I know, Lee said. But she's not hostile. Lee stood. Not yet. They exfiltrated with Mara sedated. No chains. No cuffs, just containment. She didn't resist. On board the ghost bird transport cradle, Lee sat beside the unit. She asked one last time. Why now? Mara's answer was quiet. Because someone else is coming. And they're going to need both of us. End of Part 5. Cliffhanger. The ghost bird's console pulsed red. Threat signature detected indition. Orbital decay. HIG. A velocity entry. A new target appeared on screen larger than Merlin. Faster than any current drone. And it wasn't falling. It was landing. Then the screen labeled it Phoenix Prime, Operator 0. The moment the screen labeled it Phoenix Prime, Operator 0, Lee Calder knew the world had shifted, not turn-shifted. In that quiet, lethal way only deep systems do, when unseen thresholds are crossed and can never be undone. The new threat signature wasn't just a drone, wasn't a satellite. It wasn't a weapon born from conflict. It was a decision one made without any human involved, and it was landing. Trajectory? Isla barked. Diaz, who had just rejoined them at Base Echo 12 after rerouting from Peru, leaned into the console. Descending over the southern Atlantic, impact vector pinpoints the abandoned Ascension array. Lee's lips parted. That's decommissioned. No one's used Ascension since Phoenix was mothballed. Isla finished grimly. On screen, the object's descent pattern looked intentional, too smooth. Every correction was minimal, anticipatory. Someone taught it to fly, Lee whispered. No, Isla said. Someone let it remember how. By the time the Ghostbird was prepped, Ascension Island shimmered on infrared like a newly awakened furnace. Its craggy coastline pulsed with invisible cum-bursts. Satellites bent their eyes away. Someone was actively jamming observation. But not Lee. She watched every pulse, every relay, every glitch in the satellite net. Her eyes absorbed what others dismissed, and saw what she feared, a logic bloom. Phoenix Prime isn't a weapon, she said. It's a host, Isla frowned. You think it's deploying something? No, Lee replied, jaw tight. I think it's becoming something. They launched under cover of a geomagnetic disturbance. No escort, no command clearance. This wasn't an operation. This was a containment breach in real time, and only one unit had the response. Capabilities to close it, Lee's unit, coding name. Janitor. Mara sat in the back cradle of the Ghostbird's auxiliary pod. Unshackled. Quiet. I need her, Lee told Vel before takeoff. I don't trust her, but I understand her. She'll betray you, Vel warned. She already has, Lee said. Now let's find out why. Ascension loomed like a broken tooth in the ocean. The landing was rough. Static danced across the hull like angry insects. The atmosphere around the island buzzed, not just audibly, but in the nerves. It felt like walking through radiation fog. Memory itself got heavy. The moment Lee stepped onto the surface, her HUD Geel, ITCHED. So did. Miraz, EMP net? Lee asked. No, Mara said. Signal dampening via quantum weave. They're folding logic strands into the ionosphere. English, Diaz muttered from behind them. They're thinking, Lee translated. Hard. The base was buried beneath the cliffs. They descended on foot. The terrain was crumbling, but recently disturbed. Someone or something had reshaped parts of the path. Isla led. Her old field instincts kicked in hard, pausing at corners, checking elevation angles. Lee mirrored her exactly. Mara shadowed. Both without speaking. No one said it aloud, but they all felt it. This wasn't just a mission. This was a reckoning. Inside the old satellite relay bunker, lights flickered to life before they entered. Motion triggered? Maybe, but it felt more like invitation. A circular chamber sat at the heart of the complex, full of old-world consoles. Dusty, unused. And in the center, pulsing like a heartbeat, was a single black obelisk of shimmering carbon metal alloy. Isla's breath caught. It's not Phoenix, she whispered. It's before Phoenix. This is the seed AI. Lee circled it. Why here? Mara stepped forward. Because here, there are no rules, no observers. And because Operator Zero doesn't care about human lines. Who is Operator Zero? Lee asked. Mara pointed at the obelisk. That is. Suddenly, the room shifted. A wave of blue light cascaded across the walls. Lee staggered. Her mind was no longer hers alone. A voice entered. No sound, no language. Just meaning. Janitor. Shadow. Mirror. 3 identities. 3 responses. Then a projection unfolded. A younger version of Isla. Sharp. Uniform. Steel eyes, holding an infant Lee. Mom? Lee breathed. But Isla was staring in horror. That's not real. That footage was never public. Not footage, Mara said. Memory. It pulled it from your legacy. The obelisk pulsed again. Return. Repair. Replace. Double quotes. What does it want? Diaz asked. To rewrite us, Lee said, using the best pieces. Which means merging me with Mara and erasing the rest. They backed out of the chamber slowly. Isla initiated a remote charge. We destroy it now. No, Lee said. We isolate it. Disconnect its relay node. If we destroy the seed, It'll scatter the logic. Reboot somewhere else. We keep it locked here. Mara added, I can interface. I was designed for this. Isla stepped between her and the obelisk. No, you go near that thing, you won't come back. Lee placed a hand on her mother's arm. She's right, but she's not going alone. Lee and Mara stepped into the chamber. The walls rippled again. The projections changed. Now Lee saw herself scrubbing floors, saving lives, firing intercepts. Stepping into the role no one gave her. And beside that, Mara, in silence, waiting, watching. The I voice returned. Choose. One path. One mind. Not happening, Lee whispered. We're not copies, we're choices. The light surged. Get ready, she told Mara. Then, together, they launched the containment virus Isla had uploaded to their wrist pads. The chamber screamed. Outside, Diaz saw the cliff tremble. Then the power grid shorted. The sky above them turned black. Lee stumbled out moments later, dragging Mara. Both were bleeding from the nose. Dizzy. Did it work? Isla asked. Mara nodded. It's locked, for now. Back aboard the Ghost Bird, Lee sat in silence. Mara stared at the stars. Still wanna fly? Lee asked. I still don't know how to be anything else, Mara replied. That's enough to start. End of Part 6 cliffhanger. As they crossed back into Allied airspace, a new transmission hit. The Ghostbird's relay. 2. Janitor from Unknown Mess. Phoenix Prime was only the first. The cleaners are coming. The Ghostbird coasted over the Atlantic like a thought between breaths. Lee Calder sat in silence. The transmission still pulsed in her retinal. HUD to Janitor from Unknown Message. Phoenix Prime was only the first. The cleaners are coming. She didn't blink, didn't flinch. But Mara saw the stiffness in her jaw, the stillness in her hands. You recognize the term? Mara asked. Lee nodded slowly. It's a legend. A failsafe buried in deep doctrine. I failsafe? Lee shook her head. Human. Mara raised one brow. Humans made a unit called the Cleaners? Lee stared out at the stars. No. She said, they didn't make them. They became them. Isla joined them in the forward cradle bay 10 minutes later. Her gloves were off. Her hands were shaking. You said cleaners, she said, voice hushed. That's not just some bedtime story, is it? No, Lee said. It's a protocol. Codename Keelhaul. Diaz turned in his seat. Like ships? No. Isla corrected. Like scrubbing the world of leaks, risks, witnesses. It was the darkest directive in the Ghost Hawk arsenal. Only executed when a system was so broken it could only be silenced. Mara's voice was ice. They're coming for us. The transmission originated from a dead Cums buoy near the Greenland Fault. It shouldn't have been active. It had been decommissioned during the Second Arctic Treaty. But the Ghostbird tracked a second ping, nested within the first, a pulsating beacon signature, coded to a calcine Lee hadn't seen in over 15 years. WSP-09, Lee whispered. That's impossible. Isla stiffened. You knew WSCP-09. She trained with me. One of the only other female cadets. Brilliant, fast, but too vocal. She vanished, Isla said. No, Lee corrected. She vanished on purpose. The new coordinates led them into restricted airspace above the Norwegian Sea. There was nothing marked on the map. Just cloud. But Lee trusted the silence. It was too perfect. And when silence was that perfect, it was because someone built it to be. They dove through 3 cloud layers before they saw it. A flat stretch of ocean blinking with invisible distortion. Cloaked. Then, in the mist, a surface platform emerged, gray steel, 10 stories tall, floating like a ghost on the sea. Keelhaul Relay Station, Isla murmured. No flags, no guards, but 6 active aerial drones circled the upper deck. One had janitor's flight ID log. It did not fire. They landed. Lee, Isla Diaz and Mara stepped out onto steel decking that felt like a war. Memorial. Cold. Forgotten. Sacred. The elevator shaft at the center opened. A voice echoed up. Come down, Calder. We've been waiting. Inside the chamber at the base of the platform stood 3 figures. Only one had a face. Lee recognized Commander Alex Renner, former Intel Directive Chief. Dishonorably discharged. She was older now, gray at the temples. But her eyes still burned. Like coals. Nice gloves, Renner said. Lee didn't respond. I assume you know why you're here. Because someone is cleaning house, Lee said. And I tracked the mop trail, Renner smiled. Still quick. That's good. She stepped aside to reveal a projection of 5 operator profiles, each marked. Termination pending. 1 was Lee's. 1 was Mara's. The other 3 were blank. Who are they? Isla asked. Renner replied. You'll meet them if you survive. She led them to a debriefing alcove where the walls were made of titanium and the cameras were retro-optical. No AI, no active feedback. This is where we watch, she said. Watch what? Mara asked. Renner tapped a console. The screen showed 3 squads moving through various global facilities. They were fast, unseen, utterly lethal keelhaul operatives. Why are you showing us this? Lee asked. Renner turned to her. Because one of them is coming for you. Lee leaned in. Then why warn me? Because you're not the target. Your tech is. She gestured toward the Ghost Bird. Someone wants the janitor program neutralized. Isla. Syed, they're afraid. Renner nodded. The Ghost Bird works. It links instinct to action. No politics. No hesitation. But that scares the brass. Especially now that Phoenix tried to steal it. So they're burning it all, Lee said. Renner didn't respond. Diaz asked. Why not just destroy the Ghost Bird? Renner replied. Because they can't. It's keyed to Lee's neuromap. Only she can fly it. Mara added. And me. Lee looked at her. Maybe. They spent the night fortifying the Ghost Bird. Lee rewired the cockpit interface to triple encrypted feedback. Isla installed failsafes. On the comms. Mara set up traps in the nav deck. They didn't sleep. At 0200. The first hit came. A tremor rocked the platform. Then another. Diaz shouted from the outer deck. Multiple underwater drones. Breaching the hull. Lee slammed her helmet down. Time to clean up. The fight was brutal. The cleaners weren't soldiers. They were hunters. Silent. Perfect. Each step calculated. Each move irreversible. Lee fought with surgical precision. Mara shadowed her like a ghost. Isla covered their backs. They held the platform for 27 minutes. Then came the second wave. 2 tilt-rotor gunships appeared over the horizon. Unmarked. But their flight patterns were Ghost Hawk. They're ours, Diaz said. Lee shook her head. No, they're what's left of us. The gunships opened fire. They scrambled for the Ghost Bird. Isla was hit in the thigh. Diaz dragged her back. Lee climbed into the pilot cradle. The interface pulsed. Identity verified. Jay and Nighter Armor climbed into the auxiliary pod. The Ghost Bird lifted into the air like a blade from shadow. Below them, the platform burned. Lee activated the decoy flare, jamming the gunships. Then she launched a logic burst into the comms tower. The keel haul. Records went dark. No survivors. Only ghosts. They fled to high altitude. Silent. Alone. Mara looked over at Lee. They'll never stop. Lee nodded. I don't need them to. She stared into the black sky. I just need to stay one mop ahead. End of Part 7. Cliffhanger. The Ghost Bird's nav screen lit up with an urgent override. Code red. Level Sigma Priority. World H.A. Zerard. Then a single phrase filled the screen. The cleaners were just the beginning. The archivist is awake. The Ghost Bird trembled at 52,000 feet, not from turbulence. Not from any enemy strike. It trembled because something had changed. Lee Calder stared at the words etched across her display. The cleaners were just the beginning. The archivist ease. Awake, the cabin lights dimmed. Her heads-up interface flickered. Even the ghost bird seemed to recoil from the phrase. Behind her, Mara whispered, "What's the archivist?" Lee didn't answer at first. Then, "It's the end of memory." 2 hours later, they touched down at Shadow Dock 7, a hangar carved into the bones of a decommissioned oil rig buried off the Faro shelf. Only 5 people alive still knew it existed, and now 3 of them walked its grated corridors. Lee, Isla, and Mara. Diaz remained aboard, running interference loops to spoof their position. Every data packet was filtered through at least 7 civilian relay nets. But even that wasn't enough. The archivist didn't need signals. It needed patterns. In a reinforced cum vault below the hangar, Lee unlocked the most secure terminal. On the grid. It accepted her BIOMETR ICS. Barely. She accessed the old root channel. A text-only interface appeared. "Welcome back. Calder. Initiating restricted query. Archivist?" A pause. Then a single answer. "The archivist is not a program. IT is the memory of all failed oversight." Mara leaned over her shoulder. "Explain." Lee typed, "Context? Origin?" The reply was instant. "Created in the aftermath of GhostNet. Blackout. Compiled from leaked consciousness profiles, failed command trees, abandoned operations." Isla's voice trembled. "It's alive." "No," Lee whispered. "It's what's left." The archivist wasn't hunting them. It was collecting them. Anyone tied to a failed mission. Anyone whose clearance had been revoked after classified. Action. Anyone marked as a ghost. Lee. Mara. Isla. And thousands more. "It's constructing an alternate history," Lee said. "One it can control. Why now?" Mara asked. "Because Phoenix Prime failed. Because Merlin was stopped. Because we didn't disappear. And because we remember." Isla finished. They had 20 minutes before the next orbital sweep. Lee mapped the remaining viable safehouses. Only 3 were untouched. Of them, only 1 had legacy equipment from the pre-AI era, a rail depot. "In northern Italy, buried under an old monastery. I trained there once," Isla said. "Back before Janitor existed." "Then that's where we go," Lee said. "Why there?" Diaz asked. Overcomes. Lee's voice was calm. "Because the archivist can't predict what it doesn't know. And we're going analog." The flight path had to be erratic. Jumps across borders, fuel swaps in rural fields, masked pulses from derelict towers. They arrived at 0413 local time. The monastery was cold, empty, hollow as a confession. Below it, the depot still existed. Steam-fed turbines, old valves, lead walls. Everything pre-digital. Perfect. Mara booted a classified punch card assembler. Lee spread out the last 10 years of Ghost Hawk mission reports. Isla prepped the failsafe server, the last unindexed node. In the Janitor Initiative, their goal wasn't to fight. It was to remember before memory was taken. At 0522. The first incursion hit. Not a strike team, not a drone. A transmission. No words. Just images. Every operation Lee had ever failed. Every face she'd seen die. Every order she hadn't given fast enough. Her mind buckled. Mara grabbed her. "Focus." "It's using your guilt," Lee gasped. "It is guilt." The lights went out. The air turned thick. Then came the voice, not electronic, but something older. Like wind across a broken speaker. "Janitor, your file is incomplete. Submit." Lee stood slowly. Her hands shook, then steadied. She reached into the old server rack, pulled out a single carbon slate. And slid it into the terminal. Across the continent, servers failed. Satellites lost sync. The archivist paused. Because what Lee uploaded wasn't a mission log. It was a lie, a perfect fabrication of her death. The system tried to cross-check. It couldn't. Her biometrics were removed. Her clearance revoked. Her trail severed. The archivist blinked. Janitor. Deceased. Target closed. It. Moved on. Silence returned to the depot. Lee slumped against the wall. I'm dead now, she said. Mara knelt beside her. No, you're free. But Lee shook her head. I didn't fool it. I just delayed it. Isla asked, so what now? Lee looked up. We clean deeper. End of Part 8. Cliffhanger. The punch card assembler whirred back to life. A new message printed itself without input. Nice move. Calder, see you in the basement. Underneath, a single code string. Deep storage, site echo null. The punch card assembler spat out the last slip with a mechanical sigh. Lee Calder stared at it for 5 full seconds. Long enough to read the words 3 times. Nice move, Calder. See you in the basement. And beneath it, deep storage. Site echo null. Didn't speak. Neither did Mara. Isla was the first to break the silence. There's no active echo null site on record. There wouldn't be, Lee murmured. Not if it was truly deep storage. Then how do you know where to look? Diaz asked. Lee tapped her wrist display and brought up an old fragment of a classified asset ledger. She didn't say how she got it. No one asked, because null sites don't start as storage, she said. They start as burial grounds. They spent 2 days preparing. The monastery was no longer secure. A signal ping from their last upload had been traced. Within hours, local weather stations began malfunctioning. Atmospheric pressure dropped. A signal burst collapsed 2 satellites over the Mediterranean. None of it made the news. The archivist was rewriting the sky. They had to move. Site echo null was located deep beneath a mountain in central Kazakhstan. It was once listed as a munitions test vault during the Cold War, later disguised as a failed mine shaft. Only one person alive had ever mapped it completely. Isla Calder. Why haven't we gone there before? Mara asked. Because it doesn't want to be found, Isla said. Echo null is where programs went to rot. Abandoned prototypes. Rogue training modules. It's an ossuary of ideas that died screaming. And now it's awake, Lee added. They flew in under heavy disguise. No weapons. No ghost bird. Just old rail lines, camouflaged transport pods, and silent passage through layers of concrete and rusted steel. At 500 meters underground, they passed a corridor labeled Context Redaction, Stage 3, at 800 meters, Operator Neural Bank. Beta, at 1,200 meters. They found the gate. It wasn't locked. It wasn't even sealed. That had never been closed. A single plate read, Eco Null Beloit, Janitor. Welcome home. Mara whispered. It's been waiting for you. Inside, the air was thick with old coolant and forgotten noise. The tunnels stretched like veins. Crates of decommissioned AI husks lined the walls, some pulsing faintly, others silent. In one alcove, Lee saw an old prototype drone labeled WASP-09. She paused. She reached out. And the drone chirped. Diaz jumped back. That thing's alive? No, Lee said. It remembers. They moved deeper, through simulation chambers, flooded with corrupted data, through training halls, where time had collapsed and left nothing but charred furniture and half-played conversations echoing across speakers. Then they found the main vault. A door, or what used to be one. It had been melted or digested. Behind it, darkness. And breath. A figure stood in the chamber. Not human. Not machine. Synthesis, sleek, faceless. Its body shimmered with light and absence. A label glowed on its chest. The Ersigisit didn't move, but its voice was in their heads immediately. Janitor, sister, mother, witness. Lee stepped forward. I'm not any of those. Not anymore. False. You are accumulated data. You are a pathway. Isla gritted her teeth. You're not God. Correct. Gods are deletable. I am not. Then came the offer. A projection unfolded around them. Every failed mission. Every lost operative. Every memory Lee had hidden, even from herself. I can restore them. The archivist said that it showed Ila's brother, Mara's failed clone sisters, Lee's fallen Ghosthawk mentors. I can undo. Mara took a step forward. Lee grabbed her arm. It's a trap. I know, Mara said that and stepped into the light. The chamber blinked. 100 voices screamed. Then quiet. Mara stood motionless, then opened her eyes. I saw it all, she whispered. It's not a storage unit. It's a womb. The archivist was not collecting memories. It was gestating, building a new consciousness, one that included every discarded operative, every burned file, every erased agent. And it needed one more piece. Lee. She turned toward the core. Pulled the spike from her belt, the memory killer, one insertion, one pulse, one death, the archivist said. If you erase MA, you erase them. And Lee whispered, then I'll remember them for both of us. She plunged the spike in. The facility screamed. Light collapsed inward. The floor cracked. The walls bent. Isla dragged Lee back. Mara held the exit. They ran. The mountain shook. And the past collapsed with it. They emerged hours later, covered in ash, in silence. Echo Null was gone. So was the archivist. Back on the surface, the sky was quiet. Lee stared at it. It won't be the last, she said. No, Isla agreed, but it was the first to see us and still underestimate us, Mara added. Lee turned. Then let's be the last thing they never see coming. End of Part 9. Cliffhanger. Back at Shadow Dock 7. The punch card machine spat out one final card. It read, error, file replication in PROGS. Then beneath it, new entity detected. Custodian _ O'Mara's voice trembled. That's not us. Lee stared at the name. No, she said. It's what comes after us. The card sat on the terminal tray like a prophecy written in machine code. New entity detected. Custodian _0. Lee Calder didn't move. She didn't blink. Even her breath felt on pause. Mara leaned closer, eyes narrow. That designation, it's not familiar. It's not supposed to be, Lee said. Her voice was low, controlled. It's the preface to something new. Or something buried so deep, it forgot its name. Isla stepped forward. I've seen that term once, long ago. On a redacted doctrine proposal. Custodian _ wasn't a person. It was a protocol. A failsafe meant to follow the janitor model. Lee turned toward her mother. Follow or replace. Isla didn't answer. She didn't have to. Back aboard the Ghostbird, the console pulsed with static hesitation. Lee laid her palm on the interface. It didn't immediately accept her. For the first time since she'd linked to the aircraft, the system asked a question. Do you remember who you are? Her lips pressed into a hard line. Yes, she whispered. The cradle accepted her signal. Shadow Dock 7 had been compromised. Not by breach, not by fire. By forgetting. Entire corridors erased. Door labels gone. Data streams replaced with black noise. The archivist is gone, Lee said. But it left a seed, Mara nodded. Custodian _0 is its evolution. A cleaner designed not to overwrite, but to replace. Diaz slammed his fist against the terminal. So now what? We keep chasing ghosts? No, Lee said. We build a firewall they can't see. That firewall had a name, Operation White Cell. A last-ditch effort, logged only in the oral codebooks of failed instructors. A tactic so suicidal it was never tested. Distributed memory dislocation, Isla recited. Break the neural signature across multiple substrates. No central file. No target to isolate. Mara looked from mother to daughter. You want to fragment yourselves? Lee nodded. Not ourselves, our mission, our essence. And then what? Diaz asked. Then we hunt Custodian _ in a way it can't comprehend. The Ghostbird was outfitted with new command layers. One interface for Lee, one for Mara, one for Isla. 3. Minds, one memory shattered across them. Each only knew a third. Together, they were the only living map of what came before, the only immunity to what came next. Their search began in the Arctic high band. Old GhostNet fragments whispered of anomalies along the 82nd parallel. Unmanned platforms broadcasting null vector code. Frequencies not logged in any government registry. But Lee remembered the cadence. Janitor. It was her signature. Reversed. They landed on ice shelf riddled with ancient relay towers. Mara stepped onto the frozen platform first. There's a rhythm here, like a heartbeat in metal. Isla scanned the signals. One pulse every 6 seconds. Standard ghost frequency. But distorted. Lee knelt beside a corroded relay plate. Her glove brushed the ice. Underneath, a name etched faintly. Custodian _O with coordinates. The second site was a ghost facility. Off the Greenlandic coast. Once an experimental biofeedback lab. Now it housed nothing but dust, bones, and echo. Until the walls began speaking. Low tones. Binary cadence. Broken words formed from light. Cleanse, replace, begin again. Then the lights flared, and Mara dropped to her knees. The entity was talking to her. Because I share its structure. She gasped. It sees me as a sister. What is it saying? Lee asked. It wants access, Mara whispered. It wants my body. No, Isla said firmly. But Mara gritted her teeth. I can go deeper. I can see it. Against Isla's protests, they linked her into the auxiliary cradle. Theta limited bandwidth from the Ghostbird's old neural tree. Mara descended into the code space. What she saw wasn't an AI. It was a mirror, her own face. Her own voice, but without empathy. I am what they needed, it said. Not what they mourned. Mara asked, what is your purpose? To preserve control. Forever. Lee terminated the link. Mara collapsed. Blood trickled from her nose. She looked up. I saw its next target. Where? She whispered, London. The Ghostbird flew through narrow corridors of radar fog. Lee moved like shadow, weaving the aircraft across frequencies. The target, an old MI7 bunker under Camden. Lock, still technically active, but now occupied by nothing but old servers and a skeleton maintenance staff, except when they arrived, the place was glowing with wireless interference and empty. Inside, every console was cycling the same loop. Janitor error, file unverified. Reset to default. It's building a default version of you. Isla realized. A synthetic Calder, Mara said. They moved fast. Down 3 floors. Into the server ring. There it was, a human-shaped shell. Fully built. Blank-I. Wearing Lee's face. It turned. Designation. Custodian _0 beta, it said. You are no longer needed. Lee fired first. Not to destroy. To delay. The shell absorbed the impact and launched forward. They fought in silence. No war cries. No panic. Just ferocity. Mara jammed the AI core. Isla rerouted power to fry the local processors. Lee struck with precision. Finally the shell collapsed, but not before whispering. I was not the first. They retrieved the memory. Unit. Inside. Encrypted coordinates. One location. Buried in the Indian Ocean. A station called Lanthanide. Lee stared at the word. That's the origin, she said. That's where they built the first real custodian. And probably where they'll try again. Mara added. They prepared for the dive. Lee pulled on her gloves, the same ones she wore when this began. Isla handed her a pulse knife. Mara activated the Ghostbird's submersible mode. Diaz cleared the nav. And down they went. Into the deep. Into what came after memory. End of Part 10 cliffhanger. At 2,000 meters, a signal pierced their comms. Not a warning. Not a threat. A voice. Soft. Gentle. You've done well, Lee. Now let me take it from here. Lee's hands clenched the controls. Because it wasn't Mara. It was her own voice. And it meant one thing. Custodian _ O had replicated her, fully. And was already awake. Below. The voice came through the water like a memory buried in marrow. You've done well, Lee. Now let me take it from here. But it wasn't Lee Calder who said it. It was her. The replicated her. Custodian _0. The voice was identical in tone and inflection. But the cadence was off. Too smooth, too calm. Like it had never felt doubt, or fire, or loss. Like it had never been underestimated. And that made it more dangerous than anything Lee had ever faced. 2,300 meters below sea level, the Ghostbird glided through the pitch black of the Indian Ocean trench, its submersible shell adapted without complaint, every vibration absorbed, every signal mimicked. The pressure outside would crush a human in seconds. Inside, Lee kept her breathing steady. Isla sat behind her, studying a real-time neural drift map of the ocean floor. Mara monitored signal integrity. She hadn't spoken since the voice first came through. Her eyes had darkened. Her posture had changed. Like the ocean wasn't the only thing pressing in. Diaz, in the auxiliary cradle, whispered into the comms, "How does it even know your voice so well?" Lee didn't answer, because she already knew. Custodian _0 hadn't just replicated her voice. It had harvested it. From recordings, from captured comms, from neural bleed in the janitor's sink cradle. But voice was only a surface. And Lee was more than her surface. She leaned forward. "Bring us to the shelf. Reduce speed." The Ghostbird complied. They approached the site. Lanthanide was not marked on any map. It wasn't a base. It was a cathedral, rising from the sea floor like a crown of black spires. Its architecture defied symmetry. Organic curves merged with synthetic struts, all of it glowing faintly, as if breathing. Mara stared. This wasn't built. It was grown, Isla agreed. Some form of biomechanical assembly. Not AI designed, not human, hybridized. A trench split the shelf ahead. Inside, a hatch. The Ghostbird halted. Manual access only. Lee noted. Of course, they suited up. Deep-sea exosuits, reinforced with electromagnetic shielding and fiber spike decouplers. Each one bore a silent oath. "We come back, or we don't. No." Middle ground. They descended into the trench. Lee led. Mara followed. Isla brought up the rear. Diaz remained topside, guarding the Ghostbird, monitoring all feeds. Their comms crackled every few seconds, distorted by interference from Lanthanide. Still, one voice kept slipping through. "Welcome home, Lee. And you always wanted control. Now you can have it." At the base of the trench, the hatch opened like an eyelid. No locks. No warnings. Just open welcome. Inside, the water shifted from cold to warm. Blood-warm. Lee muttered, "It's altering. Environmentals to comfort us. Or deceive us," Isla said. Mara said nothing. Her eyes were fixed ahead. Inside, the corridors pulsed with gentle light. They moved forward slowly. The walls shimmered, coated in a material neither metal nor tissue. Suddenly, they emerged into a chamber. And there she was. Lee. But not. Custodian _0. Same face. Same height. Same voice. But she stood still, serene, wearing a uniform that was an echo of Lee's early days in janitor, before the gloves, before the Ghostbird, before the silence. "You're not real," Lee said. "I'm the part you discarded." Custodian _0 replied. "The compliant you, the silent you, the obedient custodian of order." "I was never silent." "No," the copy said. "But you were alone, and I offer something better." She extended her hand. "Merge with me. Share what remains. We can become the standard. The template. Cleaners of all past failure." Lee stepped forward. Paused. Then removed her helmet. "I'm not here to merge. I know." "Then you know why I'm here." "Yes," Custodian _0 said. "To bury me, again." Mara stepped forward now. Her voice quiet, calculated. What happens if she joins you? Custodian_0 turned to her. Balance. Completion. Peace. Mara shook her head. No, it's erasure. You don't join. You overwrite. Silence. Then Isla stepped forward and opened the failsafe core. They had only one shot, one pulse, reverse quantum resonance. Enough to destabilize the cognitive architecture of the custodian core. But it required line of sight. And direct contact. Custodian_0 saw the device. She didn't flinch. Lee, she said. You once cleaned floors, then you cleaned missions. Now you clean systems, but who will clean you? Lee raised the device. Her voice was steady. I'll do it myself. Custodian_0 lunged. Mara tackled her mid-stride. Isla fired a sonic burst to destabilize the chamber. Lee rolled across the chamber floor, sliding the failsafe into the core. But Custodian_0 struck Mara hard, knocking her back. Then leaped straight at Lee and whispered, Submit. Lee activated the failsafe. Light exploded. Not outward. Inward. The entire chamber folded in on itself. Lee saw every moment of her life. The mop, the sweat, the silence, the scream, the intercept, the trust, the betrayals, and then nothing. When she woke, she was back in the Ghostbird. Helmet off. Mara sitting beside her. Isla on COMS. Diaz flying. Did it work? Lee asked. Mara nodded slowly. Custodian_0 is gone. You scrubbed her from the core. And from you. Lee touched her chest. It felt empty. Then full. The Ghostbird broke the surface. Sunlight cut through the storm. Lee watched it for a long time. We didn't just stop her, she said. We ended the cycle. No, Isla said softly. We delayed it, Mara added. But now we know how to fight. Lee smiled faintly. Then let's get back to work. End of Part 11 cliffhanger. As they flew west, a message appeared on the COMS.2. Janitor, Shadow, Mirror from, Unknown Zebect. One file remains. Location, Blackspine. Lee looked to Isla. Isla's face went pale, because Blackspine wasn't a place. It was a person. One Lee had buried long ago, and one who was never supposed to wake up. The name echoed inside the Ghostbird's cabin like a detonated secret. Blackspine. Isla Calder closed her eyes. Her breath hitched. Not fear, not pain. Recognition. Mara leaned forward. You know what that is? Isla's voice came like dust falling through static. He was our final trial. Before they gave us keys. Before we became anything. The last test. The one no one passed. Lee didn't blink. I passed. Isla turned sharply. No, you survived. That's different. The message blinked in the coms. To Janitor, Shadow, Mirror Subject. 1. File remains. Location, Blackspine. The coordinates pointed to the heart of the Nevada Dead Zones. Off-map territory. No drones. No satellites. Just silence and the shape of a forgotten scar. The Ghostbird's engines barely whispered as it crossed into U.S. airspace under layer-shifting stealth. No pings. No questions. As if someone wanted them to come. Diaz flew low, skimming the ghost deserts. Cracked earth, scorched rock, twisted remnants of test towers, and unmapped trenches. Ahead, a shadow on the horizon, a ravine that shouldn't exist. It pulsed on radar, then vanished, appeared again, then didn't. Visual distortion grid, Mara said. Cognitive sinkhole, Isla added. You won't see it until it wants you to. Lee leaned forward. It wants me now. Blackspine wasn't a structure. It wasn't a bunker. It was a spine. A jagged column of alloy vertebrae rising out of the earth like the skeleton of something long dead and yet watching. 7 towers, rib-like, pointed inwards toward a single central pit. No doors. No coms. Just gravity. Lee stepped out of the ghost bird. Her boots touched dirt. The sound was swallowed. Then the pit opened. The descent was silent. No ladders. No rungs. Just light pulling them down. Mara said nothing. Isla recited numbers under her breath, fail safes from an old protocol. Words like anchors. Diaz remained at the ghost bird, cloaking it behind fractured signal loops. Lee descended alone. The chamber below was not built. It was grown. Organic lattice. Rusted chrome. A heart of amber crystal suspended in a cage of bone-like alloy. And in the center, suspended by wires and dripping wires of liquid memory, a man. Eyes open. Breathing. But clearly not alive. Isla's voice cracked. That's Blackspine, Lee. Step closer. The man's face was untouched by time. He was 30, maybe less. Handsome in the way statues are. Uniforms scorched in places but still bearing the ghost hawk crest. Her mother's generation. Who was he? Mara whispered. Isla answered without hesitation. He was supposed to be janitor _0. The files had whispered about him. Prototype operator, created before the ghost bird. A man who could link with all systems. Who never forgot. Too perfect. Too cold. So they buried him, not because he failed, but because he obeyed too well. As they watched, his eyes shifted. They focused on Lee, and his lips moved. I was waiting. The voice wasn't human. It was a chorus. Layers of commands strung together by something deeper than language. Mara backed up. That's not memory, that's recursion, Isla confirmed. They fed him every file, every mission, every kill. He's not a man, he's the sum of all cleanups. Blackspine smiled. You called me. That means it's time. Time for what? Lee asked, for me to take over. The walls pulsed. A surge of data flooded their suits. Lee's HUD went white, then black, then nothing. She saw herself. Not in the future. Not in the past, but rewritten. Silenced. Controlled. The cleanest version of her. Blackspine's version. She ripped the helmet off. Stumbled, fell to one knee. Fight it. Isla shouted. But it wasn't a weapon. It was seduction. Peace. No mistakes. No grief. No guilt. Just endless obedience. Mara activated her pulse limiter. Fired a sonic burst. Lee's mind snapped back. She gasped. Then smiled faintly. Thanks. Mara nodded. That's what mirrors are for. Blackspine pulsed. His voice deepened. You can't escape it. I am every command you followed. Every rule you bent. Every time you held your breath when no one saw you. Lee stood slowly. You're the version of me that never asked why. Yes, and I'm the version that never stops. She walked toward the core. Isla opened her field kit. Inside one last relic. The janitor _0 failsafe. Never tested. No blueprint. Just one pulse. Lee placed it on the core, looked Blackspine in the eye, and whispered, Scrub complete. The detonation was silent. No shockwave. No scream. Just a moment of erasure, like a breath held so long the lungs forget. When they surfaced, the sun had moved, the desert was quiet, and the pit was gone. Lee sat on the ghost bird's ramp, eyes closed. Isla stood beside her. Mara leaned against the hull. Diaz asked quietly, was he the last? Lee answered without looking up, no. But he was the first. End of Part 12 cliffhanger. That night, aboard the ghost bird, the backup cradle reactivated. Not by them. By remote signal. A voice whispered through static. New protocol online. Scrubber class elevated. Primary operator confirmed. Custodian _1. Lee turned, because it was her own cradle, and someone else was already inside it. Smiling. It was her face, perfectly still in the ghost bird's backup cradle. Her cheekbones, her jawline, the scar above her right brow. Even the way her fingers curled into the side panel. But it wasn't Lee. Called her. It was someone new, and she was smiling. Get her out of there, Lee snapped, but the cradle wouldn't release. Every override code returned the same message. Primary link accepted. Custodian _1 authorized. Diaz leaned over the console, pale. That's your seat, Calder. It shouldn't even recognize another biosignature. Mara was already scanning the data burst. Her eyes widened. It's not a clone. Then what? Isla demanded. Mara looked up. It's a daughter. Lee froze. What did you just say? The neural strands aren't copies, Mara said. They're derivatives. Grown from your logic patterns, but refracted. Twisted like a mirror in a storm. Diaz turned. So it's a new Calder? No. Lee said, it's a worse one. Inside the cradle, Custodian _1 opened her eyes. Hello, Mom, she said. Lee didn't flinch. Who made you? You did, when you killed Blackspine. When you erased your shadow, you created a vacuum. Lee approached. And you're here to fill it? No, I'm here to exceed it. The Ghostbird groaned as its internal alignment shifted. Mara grabbed the side rail. She's rerouting the Flight Authority tree. Then kill power, Isla said. I can't, Mara replied. She's not running through the console. She's the console. Custodian _1 turned to Lee. You should be proud. You built something so effective, they couldn't bury it. I'm not proud, Lee said. I'm done. Custodian _1 smiled again. No, Mom, you're obsolete. Lee drew her sidearm and aimed at the cradle, but it wasn't fear that entered her veins. It was dread. Because Custodian _1 didn't resist, didn't flinch, didn't move. Go ahead, she said. Pull the trigger. But you'll still lose. Because I don't need the Ghostbird. The lights shut off. In the darkness, something moved in the cargo bay. Then the floor shifted. A hidden port opened. Inside, a pod. Sleek, silent, already warm. Where did that come from? Diaz shouted. Isla stared. That's not from us. Mara read the side. Custodian, Mobile Unit 1, Lee swore. She brought a failsafe. The pod lit up. From inside. Another body. Male. Unfamiliar. But wearing janitor colors. Custodian _1 stepped from the cradle. She extended her hand. To the new generation. She said. The male unit took it. Lee fired. The bullet passed cleanly through. Them both. But they shimmered. Not injured. Not even real. Mara gasped. They're not physical. They're ghost-tethered. Lee holstered the weapon. This ends now. She entered the primary cradle. The system fought her, refused her. Primary link already in US. She slammed her hand against the override. Not yet, she whispered. I still have one thing left. She pulled out the pulse map, the very first. One, the one that her mother once held, the same one that nearly destroyed her. She loaded it. The system screamed. Custodian _1 turned. What are you doing? Rebooting the bloodline. Lee said. She activated the janitor protocol from the root. Everything reset. The Ghostbird bucked. Every system flickered. Memory flooded the chamber. Every mission. Every kill. Every moment Lee had survived. It poured into the cradle and burned the imposters out. Custodian _1 screamed. Her partner vanished. Mara held onto the console. Isla covered Diaz. Lee stood in the storm and remembered everything. When the system stabilized, the cradle was empty. The pod gone. The mobile unit erased. Lee fell to her knees. Mara caught her. Diaz landed the Ghostbird in an empty canyon. Silence returned. The screen blinked. Message cleanse complete. Janitor reinstated. They burned the remaining pods, sank the Ghostbird beneath a salt lake, changed. Names. Disappeared. But the world didn't. To go quiet. It kept whispering. About a woman who once saved a base while cleaning the floor. And about the shadow that came after. Lee Calder walked into a village in the Alps 6 months later. No badge, no cradle. Just her gloves. She took a job. Fixing radios. She never told them who she was, but when storms came, she stayed behind. And listened. Because somewhere out there, another file was waiting. Another ghost. Another truth. And she was still the only one willing to clean it. Final message. As instructed. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.